Mark, would you like to respond before we open it up to audience questions?
I very much would like to respond, particularly on the issue of gerrymandering. If you want to know the single issue that won the 1994 House for the Republicans, I'll give you a hint. It wasn't the contract with America. It wasn't that. It wasn't Newt Gingrich, I don't believe. It was precisely packing blacks into districts that would be 80, 90% black and 80 to 90% Democrat. Because when you do that, what does that do? You create 6 districts that are 55% Republican and 3 districts that are 100% Democrats. And that's the way you take a majority Democratic state and you give the majority to Republicans. And the few Democrats who supported that in the 90s do not support it now, including, by the way, the Congressional Black Caucus. It's also against that idea. The few that supported it realized it was a colossal failure for the Democrats. You can't do that. In fact, in Florida, they packed blacks so well that in a state that we all know is pretty 50-50 among the parties, it's 18-7 Republicans, Democrats in the House. Because what they do is they grab a black district, they go out to the Atlantic Ocean for 200 miles, come back, grab a black district, goes back out to the ocean. Check out Florida's district maps sometime if you want to see gerrymandering. And so Bruce's solution, which by the way I support, I'd love to see an Iowa standard in every state. Bruce's solution is this: the Republicans have cheated and have gotten 58-42 in an election that they should have gotten 49-51. So they gained 10% by cheating. So the Democrats should not fight back by doing the same kind of cheating. No, we should be above board. We should definitely hit the face while they hit us below the belt because we're better people. I disagree. If they go into the gutter, unfortunately we have to go into the gutter with them. And to say that Illinois and California shouldn't gerrymander just because the other big states, Pennsylvania and Texas and Florida have, is to say they allowed the nuclear weapon at us, but we're above using nuclear weapons. Obviously, I would support a national solution that would stop gerrymandering, but what I really don't like is the idea that they hit you in the face and then you tie your hands behind your back so as not to do the same awful thing to them.
Come on, Mark.
I wasn't sure whether I should respond, but with that I will. Thank you. Going into the gutter. You know, I think one of the reasons Clinton won elections is because he could play a little dirty. Look, for example, on the issue of gerrymandering, there are ways to fight back, to, if you will, climb 1 foot in the gutter and 1 foot in heaven. I don't know if that's a terrible metaphor, but the point is this. For example, here's what Illinois and California could do. They could say this: we pass a law that says that a commission shall decide our gerrymandering that will go into effect the moment that Pennsylvania, Texas, and Florida pass the same law. And until that time, we're going to gerrymander the hell out of this state for the Democrats. We're taking the high road. If you want to join us, Republicans, join us. If not, we got to fight to protect our interests. So you kind of play both roads. When John Kerry said in the Democratic National Convention, I'm going to make this a positive campaign, George Bush, I invite you to join me. Remember that? George Bush didn't join, did he? Then came the Swift boat liars. They actually suggested that John Kerry was a traitor to the country. Not just that he actually didn't earn his medals, that the Navy documentation 20 years later was false. But did any Democrats mention the fact that all the witnesses that saw George Bush doing cocaine?
Right.
Did anyone mention the fact that George Bush hasn't denied doing cocaine? And even if you think, as I do, that the drug war is overwrought, there is something about a president that supports putting people in prison for doing the same drug that he hasn't denied doing himself. So I'm not advocating lying when I say go into the gutter. I'm advocating telling some difficult truths. And unfortunately, when you look at polls in the 2004 race, where Kerry went positive and Bush went negative, and you ask the American people, was one side more negative than the other? It's interesting. It's like 10% said Kerry was more negative, 20% said Bush was more negative, and 70% said both were too negative. So even when you try to run a positive campaign, the American people just see all the negativity and they're against you. I think you got to fight hard in politics. Don't lie. I'm not advocating lying. I am advocating fighting pretty hard.
how many people would like to take the remaining time to ask the panelists what they would recommend progressives or Democrats do in the face of all this, or versus a couple of more questions? Show of hands for what should we do now? Okay, we have about a minute per panelist here.
Maybe I'm the heavy here because I'm going to pick on Bruce a bit here. I think that Bruce has said a couple things that shows you how the media has framed issues that are false. The idea that Bush stood by his policies. Bush has flip-flopped so many times I can't even name them because I don't have enough time. But if I did, I would, and you can talk to me after if you want to hear that. I don't recall Kerry ever saying the criminal justice system is the way to punish terrorists. That's what Bush said he said, but he never said it. So again, the media is taking Bush's words and pretending they're true when they're not. Kerry, in fact, Kerry on Homeland Security was much more protective of United States Homeland Security than Bush has ever been. What I do agree with Bruce, though, is I do think we have to take back the language of faith. The language of the Bible is very much a language of us looking out for each other. And we need to remind those who believe in the Bible that Jesus talked hundreds of times about poverty, about caring for the poor. He hung out with lepers and prostitutes, and he didn't say a word about abortion or homosexuality. I also think we have to take back the Constitution. I always carry a Constitution wherever I go speak, because we are on the constitutional side. All the Republicans, the liberals want to shred the Constitution. They are shredding the Constitution. And again, I don't have time to give you specifics, but I think you know them. And when we look, for example, at the nuclear option on judges, it's just coming about this week, which is a violation of the constitutional rule that says the Senate chooses their own rules. Let's point out, we defend the Constitution, the Republicans want to destroy it. Let's again take back the terms of the debate. And lastly, on the systemic issues, things like gerrymandering voting, let's say in 1,000 letters to Senator Allard of Colorado, why are you against verified voting? What do you have to fear?